Om, blessed self in all adorations. This form of addressing you itself is based upon philosophical understanding of yoga, that deep within there is one reality. Life is universal. And so the deepest identity in any human being is not limited, individualized, but rather it is universal. You are not just limited personality, but deep at the core of your heart, you are all that is. Just as physical body is divided into various limbs, hands, feet, eyes, ears, each one has its own definite, distinct feature. However, the life that embraces all is one. It is one life sustaining your feet, your hands, your eyes. Much in the same way, with a very advanced mental expansion, it is possible to understand that you can allow your heart to feel unity with people who are far away, not only human beings, but all creation. And that had been the ideal in mystic movement. And it was this that was perfected by great personalities from ancient times, Christ, Buddha, who felt the pulsation of universal life in their heart, and who gave the message to human beings that it is possible for them to rise beyond the narrow confines of their mind and to experience that joy, that expansion, that peace which belongs to a person when he has unity with all. Therefore, we commence our address. May that self, who is one and everlasting, may adorations be to him. I will present to you a brief outline of what yoga is in the simplest terms possible. Firstly, the word yoga means union. The question arises, what type of union we mean by yoga? Answer is union of yourself with the divine self. As I have already explained how, your mind gives you a limited idea of what you are. In the field of psychology, when a person develops a split personality due to certain shock, psychologist becomes concerned with bringing about normality in the mind. The moment normality returns, the person removes the wrong identity that he had developed about himself and begins to remember things that he could not remember before. If you follow the same logic, you will realize that you never know yourself completely, because the mind is subject to change, modification, purity and expansion. What will you know of yourself if your mind is completely free from all complexes? What will be your feeling of yourself? Your mind has absolutely all its desires fulfilled. How will you experience yourself if the mind is completely free from all prejudices, fearful complexes? And that would be your true identity. But all the while, what you think of yourself is conceptual, which goes on changing. Take, for example, today you say, I am a failure and I cannot succeed in a particular business and I suffer from a particular complex. But suppose you go through a certain change in your life and transformation, and then you begin to discover that you are not as you thought yourself to be. Rather, you have abundant energy, and by the use of which you can overcome things that you found previously so impossible. You can render them possible. So, if you follow this logic, you will realize that there is an endless possibility of discovering a new horizon within yourself, a new talent that is hidden. And yoga is that process of uniting yourself with what you essentially are. This is the same concept that is adopted in education, in religion. The term religion also means the same, relegare, a Latin word. Legare, ligation, linking, to unite back, to do it again. It is understood or believed that a person has somehow been separated from the divine self, God, or the universal reality. Religion is to link him back to that divine self. When we use the term education, that also literally implies drawing out. What you have within you is drawn out by giving you proper atmosphere. And therefore, a human being is not taught by an external process of imposing upon him, but rather you are drawn, the qualities of your soul are drawn out through an artistic way of living in day-to-day life. Yoga therefore means union, and its goal is self-realization. Soon I will explain to you how that union is affected and how that goal is realized. Now, anyone who practices yoga is called a yogi. Anyone who has perfected yoga is also called a yogi. So that these are the terms that you must know. When you hear the term yoga, it means that broad understanding of that mystic science referring to union with the divine self, which has many aspects. And when you hear the term yogi, it means anyone who practices yoga. Yoga has many aspects. There are major aspects of yoga, which I have illustrated on the blackboard. Human personality has 4 aspects: reason, feeling, will, and action. Your personality is like a mansion founded upon 4 great pillars. And in order to properly advance in life, you must not exclude any of these 4. Your growth, your advancement depends on a balanced and integrated development of these 4. Therefore, if a person were to be given all the good condition to study more and more, and so you have all the philosophical books at your hand, at your command, and you can make your mind filled with all philosophical and mystic information, yet you remain disbalanced. There must be expression in your life. Whatever intellectually you understand, you must be able to put it into practice. And further, intellectual advancement should not deprive you of the feeling aspect of your personality. You must be able to feel for human beings. You must be able to develop compassion, tender feeling for the suffering of others, and a will that it should not be so. And reason therefore should not be cruel. It should not lead you to a cold development of your personality. As a humorous anecdote is given of a great scientist who sits in his laboratory analyzing chemical substances, and his wife comes to him seeking his attention and, shedding tears in her eyes, complains about various things of day-to-day life which he ought to have taken into consideration. And he, in the meantime, says, "Madam, sit down. Let me analyze your tears. Your tears cannot frighten me or cannot bring forth in my heart any different feeling, because they are constituted of a little of H2O and a little of certain form of chloride and certain other chemicals. So I'm not I'm not like other sentimental people who would be just upset because you weep. Showing how one-sided development can make you so totally oblivious of reality of life. Science presents things in a divided manner, while life is not divided. It is your whole personality that you must take into consideration. Having understood that point, that your life demands movement not one-sided but all-sided. There must be food for reason, food for feeling, food for will, and also there must be an active expression in life. And now yoga, according to these four aspects in personality, yoga has four great aspects. First, yoga of reason, that is called jnana yoga. Jnana yoga is the philosophical aspect of yoga. This is also called Vedanta, the end of the Vedas. The purpose of jnana yoga is to enable a person to understand clearly what is the nature of the deeper reality within, what is life, what is the world, what is God, the divine self. This is a philosophical process which demands that your intellect must become so subtle and sharp that it should not become hampered by sentimental attitudes. And briefly, Jnana Yoga tells you that the reality that is within you is the same as is the reality behind the whole world, and therefore you have deep within you a basis through which you can commune with the entire world, a basis through which you can bring about a change in the world, because the world is founded on a reality, and that reality is the very self. I am that. This was taught by great mystics in every religion. Here I must point out to you whether yoga is a philosophy or a religion. In normal point of view, yoga is neither philosophy nor a religion. But to give you a quick answer, it is a blend of the two. Yoga is not philosophy in the academic sense, because yoga speaks of finality. It does not allow you to go on speculating. Yoga is based upon revelation of sages, sages who experienced unity with life, and therefore they start with that fundamental, that since there is unity with all, how are we to realize it? So it is not opening a possibility of reaching another form of decision or another form of understanding. Yoga therefore is not ordinary philosophy. It is intuitional philosophy. And it is not ordinary religion, though yoga has its basis in Hindu religion. And when did it arise in the beginning? When was it first discovered? As generally people want to know. Since how long yoga has been in vogue, in practice? It is very difficult to say. From historical point of view, you must know that Buddha existed nearly 600 years before Christ, and he was an adept in yoga. Yoga teachings were prevalent even before him. The great writings, scriptural writings of India known as Vedas, historians place those writings nearly 5,000 years before Christ. Therefore, yoga is very antique. But the understanding about the antiquity of yoga should be kept in your mind with a clearer point of view. That is, simply because something is very antique or has antiquity about it, that does not mean that it is authentic. Criminality is very antique. As the Bible says, even in the beginning, Adam's two sons, one of them had criminal intentions. He killed his younger brother. And criminality, therefore, is very antique. However, that doesn't mean that it is authentic. But with reference to yoga, yoga is very antique. As antique as creation. Further, you must understand that yoga refers to laws of life. And when we talk about historicity of things, it simply refers to people who have discovered at a certain time. Take, for example, Newton discovered the laws of gravitation in his time. So we say he is the discoverer of the law of gravitation. But therefore does not mean that law of gravitation started with Newton. Much in the same way, these mystic understandings did not start with a human being for the first time. However, it came to the notice of people at a certain stage in history. It might have come to the notice of people many times before. This should not, of course, become important in the study of what yoga is. But as a general understanding, yoga is very antique. And it has existed through time. And time and again it has been proven to be a powerful movement. And it has been the nourisher of various religions. It is very reasonable to understand how the yogic atmosphere that was created by Buddha was imbibed by Jesus, and how there are similar teachings prevalent in all religions of the world. All religions at the depths speak of the same thing. Here you must understand that yoga does not promote an understanding of biased faith. That is, unless you become a Hindu, you cannot improve yourself. You cannot be saved. That yoga does not. Yoga in that sense is not a religion. You can be whatever you are. And yoga gives you an understanding how to intensify your faith. Because God or the ultimate is the same reality. When philosophically you try to understand what the truth is, then that is the movement of jnana or wisdom. When you try to comprehend truth through your heart and through your feeling, the truth is called God. You can be doing the two things at the same time. You can love God, and philosophically you can try to understand God not as a person, but beyond all mental definitions. And so, I've given you some idea about what jnana yoga is. It is a philosophical understanding and a constant philosophical approach. The next aspect of yoga is bhakti or devotion. This aspect of yoga is the basis of all religions. Most religions have one supreme feature of love of God. And most major religions teach that a person must discover that divine love within them, within him. And as you discover that divine love, you draw divine grace. And in yoga philosophy, this is not merely in words, because no one can be simply asked, love of God. And you cannot just love God because you are told, because you are threatened that unless you love God, you will go to everlasting hell. Rather, there is a science, and you begin to understand how, if personality can be properly integrated, you will not cling to your ego. If you are fulfilled, you do not assert your ego. If you are not fulfilled, you begin to lean upon your ego. And therefore, if true fulfillment can be brought about in your personality, you become humble. In the state of humility, you discover that you are backed up by a source so powerful, so divine, so sweet and sublime, that you cannot but love that divine basis. And you begin to live, drinking the nectar of divine love. And your life becomes very joyous. However, The movement does not give to you immediately all that expansion of love is. You begin to experience progress on the path of devotion gradually. In other words, each time your mind becomes confused, confined to many problems, you are able to find a center beyond that confusion. There lies also an insight in psychology. You can save yourself and get out of any problem and find an answer to any difficult and confounding question if you could discover a point within you which is away from that vicious circle that the mind has created. And if therefore the mind can understand that there is a transcendental basis, that in spite of the confusion I am somewhere away from it, the moment you discover that source within you that is untouched by the confusion, you begin to bring about a process of psychological integration within yourself very effectively. And that is the purpose in religion and in treatments in psychology. A person must have faith somewhere from where he can drag himself out of the swamp that his mind has created. Much can be said, but I am giving you simple outlines. Bhakti is the predominant feature in all religions of the world, while yoga adopts it as one of the aspects. And it does not matter in yoga philosophy what name do you give to God. And therefore a devotee can be a devotee of Christ. He can be a devotee of Krishna in Indian tradition, or Buddha, or Muhammad, or Moses. He can be devotee according to his faith. However, yoga simply asks that if you are a devotee of a particular ideal, in order to be a true devotee, your mind must be free from distractions. So yoga gives you an art how to meditate upon the ideal and how to receive the grace of that ideal. And gradually as you advance, you realize that every ideal you hold in your mind is like a picture of the divine self taken from a particular stage. And in reality, therefore, people can have all the ideals and they are not in conflict. Take, for example, a person is flying towards the sun and he takes different shots, different pictures of the same sun. In different stages, his pictures of the same sun are different. However, it is of the same sun. Much in the same way, God or the divine self can be adored by human mind in different ways according to different psychological setup of the mind. Therefore, in yoga philosophy, there is no emphasis that you have to worship the Supreme only through a particular form. But you can choose whatever you want, because in ultimate level, you will not be confined to that. You will go beyond it. Next aspect of yoga is called karma yoga, rather Raja yoga, called practice of meditation. In the West, more popularly, yoga is of this nature, that is Raja yoga. This Raja yoga was compiled by a great sage, Patanjali Maharshi, much before Christ. And it is presented in the form of aphorisms called Raja Yoga Sutras. It deals with the study of mind, different powers that mind has within it. It deals with an insight into thought culture, insight into psychology. And Raja Yoga therefore provides for very deep study of mind and also provides for a very good basis for the advancement in the science of psychology, if Raja Yoga is properly promoted, understood, and practiced. Now, Raja Yoga emphasizes this fact that no matter what your faith, Raja Yoga does not even demand that you should have faith in God at all. Whether you have faith in God or you do not have faith in God, whether you want to practice yoga for self-realization or for merely a material development, it does not matter. You may say, I am not interested in yoga because I want to live, I want to enjoy, I want to. Some person few days before, when I was talking to him about yoga, he says, yoga is wonderful. But look, I'm addicted to so many things. I want to smoke, I want to drink, I want to have money in the bank. I can't live without this. So until my mind is fed up with this, I cannot come back to yoga. This form of understanding is wrong. No matter what your ideal is, what your desire. Yoga gives you an art of concentrating the mind. Raja Yoga gives you very practical understanding. That no matter what you hold as your ideal, your mind is the way. If you hold in your mind two contradictory ideals, you can't get any one of them. And therefore, how the mind can be rendered concentrated? Therefore, Raja Yoga gives you an art of developing keen attention. You should not allow your mind to think that unless it is morning hour, unless doors are shut, unless no sound is around, I can't be peaceful. You build in your mind a concept of peace. Unless things are set up in a particular way, I cannot be peaceful. Rather, you learn the art of amazing control of mind, that even in a crowd, if you want to think in a particular way, who stops you from thinking that way? Even when there are noises, you train your mind in such a way that you just shut those noises out, because it is you, your mind, that accepts them. Even when people speak ridiculous things, you know very well that unless you allow your ears to hear those words and unless your intellect reacts to them, it doesn't mean anything. And so it is possible to strengthen the mind to such an amazing level that the world, with all its variety of developments, cannot obstruct your movement. You can continue to advance whatever you want to achieve. Yoga therefore presents before you a great technique of thought culture. In this technique of thought culture, yoga has all the insight that the present psychology has, only with certain difference. The difference is that in yogic process of analyzing yourself, you should not go after your weaknesses. And when did these weaknesses begin? And who was at fault? Father, mother. Yoga does not go after this. You must understand that yoga does not contradict the psychological advancement, but yoga has in its perspective not only bringing an abnormal person to a normal level, but a normal person to a supernormal level. Therefore, yoga is not basically a process of psychotherapy bringing abnormal people to normal level, but rather yoga is more effectively directed towards those who are normal within limits, and they are led to supernormal advancement, because as a normal being you cannot be really happy. You can be happy with things, but as your normality becomes more secure, you will realize that there is something more. People can't just live for money and for little prosperity, gain and recognition, but there is something more. And yoga brings answer to that situation. And so yoga is a process of allowing you to enter into supernormal level. Raja Yoga of Patanjali Maharshi, that is this yoga of meditation, gives you an art of how to concentrate the mind. And one of the branch of Raja Yoga is Hatha Yoga, the exercises that you have seen. These exercises are meant to bring about a physical balance. As you promote physical balance in your body, because yoga does not exclude the reality of your health. You must have very good health, very good balance of vital and physical functions within you. in order that the mind is not cramped by physical condition. The mind can stay relaxed and therefore it can pursue something great. So yoga gives you that basis of physical exercises. Physical exercises constitute an aspect of Raja Yoga, a minor yoga, known as a Hatha Yoga. There are many minor yogas. Coming to the major aspect of yoga, practice of meditation. For the practice of meditation, the first stage is concentration. Teaches you various ways of directing your mind to certain objects, certain points, certain way of thinking. And as I was explaining, in yogic psychology, you do not go after your negative, but you discover the positive within you. The simple understanding is that light overcomes darkness. So why go after the darkness? When did it begin? Why is it there? But exercise what is positive in you and the negative will vanish automatically. Further, yoga gives you an insight into an understanding that you are not this physical personality, but you are a soul who have many personalities, who had many personalities before. Yoga gives you an understanding into the laws of karma and reincarnation. And therefore, deep within, as you practice meditation, you begin to understand that even after death, you cannot be really destroyed. You are a soul, and even before your birth, you existed. And the conditions that you encounter in your day-to-day life, they are not by accident. The world being a system, very organized, it is impossible to think that certain accidents develop in a person all for no reason. Rather, very deep study in mind shows that even when you throw a cup of glass by accident and break it, there is an unconscious intention. Psychologists have demonstrated this fact. A person is hypnotized. In hypnotic state, he is given a suggestion that the moment you wake up from this trance, walk out to the window and throw the glass out the window as an accident. The person hears the suggestion, his unconscious has picked it up, the hypnotizer dehypnotizes him, he comes to his normal consciousness, he says he feels suffocated, so he walks to the window, he opens the doors or the window in such a way that the glass falls, breaks. He says it's an accident. I'm not at fault. However, it was well planted intentionally in his unconscious. Therefore, as you enter into a very profound study of mind, you realize that you are attracting conditions to yourself for which you cannot go on blaming the world. And if you could learn that perspective of the mind properly, you will realize you are the architect of your destiny. You do not have to blame the world for what you are, blame humanity and develop bitterness towards people. Rather, you must realize that you have the possibility of changing the pattern of your existence by culturing the mind, integrating the mind, directing the mind in a particular way. And therefore, an insight into karma, how your previous thoughts and previous intentions bring about different conditions in your life. And therefore you should be patient when things become bitter in your life. With patience you try to tide over them. And you try to summon your reason and your understanding instead of becoming desperate and frustrated. What I'm trying to point out to you is that if you develop a very deep and clear understanding of what law of karma is, an understanding that your soul is immortal, that your physical personality is not the finality, that is not the only final development, that once you lose it, you will lose everything forever. If this is understood, you have various aspects of a very great mental culture. Firstly, you will not allow your mind to be too clouded. You know that there is a place beyond this cloud. Secondly, you will overcome fear. You will begin to eradicate fear from your unconscious. Thirdly, you will not blame other people, and therefore you replace your internal frustrations with external bitterness. Fourthly, you will develop patience and endurance when things become too difficult, turbulent. You will not lose yourself completely in it, but you will develop patience and endurance. Further, you will develop more humanitarian attitude towards others. You will realize that others, like yourself, have different problems. And therefore, if a person is cruel, if a person seems to be vicious, he is a patient rather than a criminal. And therefore, disease must be hated but not the patient. These points become highly humanitarian if they are gradually promoted in your personality. And the last, karma yoga. Karma yoga is the test of yogic development. Yoga does not teach you that you have to be confined to a cave, as sometimes some people present, and a misunderstanding develops that in order to be a yogi, you have to get away from the day-to-day world and go somewhere in the Himalayas and seek a spiritual teacher or a guru, get into some initiation, a mystic initiation, sit by the banks of the Ganges, and inside the cave you are free from this miserable world. No war, no violence, no newspaper, and you are in tune with your God within you, and everything is quiet. How wonderful. But the fact is that is not really practical. Yoga is not a philosophy of escaping the realities of the world. Because if you actually do, you will find that you are deluding yourself. You cannot keep quiet with a mind that has so many impressions of things. Even in a cave, you will find many things. You will find monkeys to play with. You will find many little attachments that will develop, many confusions and many agitations. Human mind carries its problems wherever you go. And therefore, yogic perspective is to overcome the problems and not to be defeated by them. You so overcome your mind that the world becomes a convenient circumstance for experiencing the glory of your soul. It does not become a degrading and a confusing and a thwarting perspective. The world becomes rather a help, not a hindrance. And so a yogi, as he advances, he learns the art of doing his duty. There again, there is a great science of what is human duty. What should you do? What is good? What is evil? In the light of yoga, there is no definition to these things in a clear, strict terms. What is good for one human being at a particular level may not be so good for another. It is good for a child to walk on four. For a grown-up person, it will be a great retardation to walking on four. It is good for a lion to just wait in the forest and pounce upon an innocent lamb and devour it and chew it up with great relish. However, it's not good for a human level of consciousness to do so. And so there are levels. Accordingly, your concept of virtue and vice begins to change. Very briefly, virtue is that act which enables you to control your mind better, which enables you to expand, which enables you to recognize that you belong to the universality of life, which allows you to do maximum good to people. Vice is that which is opposed to these. However, virtue and vice cannot be acquired, they must be unfolded. A healthy personality has no choice but to be virtuous, to be good. A healthy mind, a mind that has less of tension and frustrated desires, will become spontaneously kind and compassionate and understanding. He does not have to work for it, because it comes to you like a fragrance out of a flower. So in Karma Yoga, the yoga of action, as your personality integrates, you draw to yourself healthier form of activity. Secondly, when you perform those activities, you do not become proud. You do not develop conceit, egoism, how wonderful am I? And you do not really seek appreciation and reward from the people. A truly fulfilling action is free from these traits of your personality. That is, it does not demand egoistic development. Take, for example, you are a good musician and you sing, which gives you joy. And you sing, therefore, and people say how wonderful you sing. You have delighted our hearts. And that praise, or without that praise, you will sing anyway, because your heart is filled with music. There is nothing other than music. So whether people appreciate or not, it flows from you out of the fullness of your feeling. That is the ideal of Karma Yoga. Whether people appreciate or not, your personality flows in a creative form of activity. And that was the ideal presented by Gandhi, Buddha, and great personalities of the world who dedicated themselves to the service of humanity in various ways. And it can be practiced within degrees in every human being. But when you become attached to an action, you do some work, and you have set before your mind, this is how the work must give me a particular reward or development. Then you limit your potentiality, you limit the free flow of divine movement in you, because mentally you are conditioning a future development. Rather, advanced personality leaves the future in divine hands. You simply do. Divine perspective is to give you more than your mind desires. But the mind wants to see things within its own expectation and limits. There lies a restrictive process in life. Whatever you do, your mind has already given a judgment. This is what I want. If you allow your mind to be relaxed, you will get more than what you wanted. Because what you want at a particular level, you may not want as your mind advances. Certain perspectives that seem so wonderful now may not be so later on. Why then limit the future? A yogi works with this attitude. A yogi develops the attitude that whatever happens in the world, or whatever situation I am in, is not contradictory to my advancement. I will advance nevertheless, because nature will not plan things contrary to my movement. God being the indwelling reality, nothing can go wrong if I properly understand it. Secondly, you develop dedication, a form of surrender to divine will. You perform your duties well, without allowing your mind to be clouded by the past or the future. You learn the art of living in the present. And you learn the art of detachment. No matter what result is, as long as you have performed your duty well, that in itself is your reward. If the reward that you want does not take place, does not happen, then you surrender to divine will. The divine will knows better. And you will find that there is a meaning, a significance, when certain desires of a person are frustrated. Later, you say, how wonderful it was that what I desired I did not get, did not find, because it has led me into something else, which is better than before. I have thus presented to you a brief outline of these four main yogas: Jnana Yoga, Yoga of Wisdom, to enable your reason to turn into intuition; Bhakti Yoga, Yoga of Feeling, to enable your feeling to become so profound that you begin to love God as the reality behind everything. And therefore, even when you love a human being, you are loving God in a human being. And therefore, your love of a human being will not be limited by your selfishness. And your love of a human being will not be frustrated if your selfish concept of a person is removed or distorted somehow. Because then you know that you are constantly loving the divine and not the personality. Your love will not know frustration once a deeper movement in feeling arises. But when deeper movement is not there, it is egoistic. As long as ego is fulfilled, and whoever fulfills the ego is lovable. The moment the person does not fulfill, there is no more love, no care, no affection. No matter what happens, it does not matter. Such is the perspective of ordinary love. But love of God is abounding, abundant, everlasting, and knows no decrease, rather increases more and more. And then control of mind by developing pure will, as your unconscious becomes free from the burden of frustration. Your mind develops immense power. The power that mind has is so abundant that it cannot be easily understood. If mental power could be exercised, you wouldn't need atom bombs or various weapons of war. If mental power could be exercised. And therefore, great men have ruled the hearts of many without the great turmoil of violent weapons. Meditation is that art which Raja Yoga gives you, how to meditate, how to watch your thoughts, how to elevate them, and how to condition your unconscious in such a way that it has the basis of pure thoughts only, a mind that negates all feeble and humiliating thoughts, no matter what situation, no matter what circumstance, but continues to flow with elevating thoughts. And as you change the pattern of your thought, your circumstances will change as well. You will look through the history and you will find how great men have pressed upon in their life on the basis of mental culture. And your possibility to culture your mind is endless. How much powerful you can render your mind is not limited. Not by astrology, not by your health, not by anything. Soul being the basis, you have unlimited possibility. However, a plan must be adopted, and that plan is the art of yogic guidance, the practice of yoga. And then Karma Yoga explained how your day-to-day activity will be converted into a process of mental purification and divine expression. These yogas are not different yogas, though in practice many adopt one-sided yoga. There are teachers who will teach only bhakti yoga and will not touch others. There are teachers who are specialized only in jnana yoga. There are teachers who are specialized in one of the minor yogas. Hatha yoga, as you have seen, are exercises to promote health and vitality. Kundalini yoga is a special exercise of concentration on centers in the spine to awaken mental powers. And mind can develop abnormal and supernormal powers. You have heard how some people have the art of prophecy. Some people can see things that are happening far away. All this mind has, mind can know others' thoughts. Mind can see things from a distance. Rather, in fact, all the scientific advancement has been brought about by the systematic channelization of mental energy. It is the mental energy and its channelization that has made man fly up to the moon and gauge the whole universe before his view. Mind and its power is systematized through scientific channels. In yogic channel, without any instrument, mind can direct itself to any place, any situation and understand it. Mind can develop intuitive faculty. And you have heard of great sages and yogis performing miracles. So these are the various branches in yoga. Laya yoga is a yoga of withdrawal, where mind is allowed to be blended with an internal perception of melody and music. Kriya yoga is a yoga of purification. You purify your mind and thereby the mind begins to develop certain powers. There are many other yogas, but what is most important to understand that in a normal understanding of yoga, you blend all these four yogas in your day-to-day personality. Early in the morning when you wake up, there must be time for silencing the mind and practicing meditation. There must be some time for exercising yourself. Hatha yoga exercises combine mental concentration, therefore they are different and they are more vital. There must be some time for study of scripture to develop more of intellectual advancement. There must be some emphasis on devotion. There must be good association. There must be also some form of activity of a generous and magnanimous nature, so that you combine these different aspects of yoga. You love God, you try to understand God, you try to serve God in others, and you try to see your mind and overcome its weaknesses day by day, persistently. If you do so, you may think, why should I do all for myself? Isn't this all sound like too selfish? The fact is, it is not. Yoga has far-reaching results. Any integration that you promote within yourself is a greater service rendered to humanity than anything else in the world. Because how you operate in the world depends upon your mind, your complexes within. If the mind could be rendered pure, can be rendered healthy, you will be emanating from your personality courage, joy, understanding, tolerance, endurance. A world will be wonderful to live in. Yoga, therefore, promotes universal welfare and peace in the long run. And if this understanding is propagated properly, you are laying a foundation for a very advanced culture. If the same attention is given to knock out the enemies of the soul in the form of ignorance, egoism, pride, greed, if the same attention is given as the governments give attention to control the external enemies, if that attention could be directed towards the control and elimination of internal enemies, there would be a different world to live in. However, this does not mean that the external form of war, etc., can be denounced radically. Yoga does not denounce it, nor does it condone it. It is a practical reality that humanity faces. But the ideal must be kept in view of advancing that understanding which can promote a feeling for all, a world in which all human beings have the same right to live, the same right to feel, where all can feel with oneness and love. That ideal must be kept in view. But from practical point of view, if there are conflicts in personalities, wars among nations, these are also part of a process of perfection that nature has planned. Yoga does not condone violence, however, does not abruptly negate it. Rather, as I have said, virtue cannot be imposed. It must be unfolded gradually. Yoga, as you have learned, Mahatma Gandhi presented the ideals of yoga in the field of political firmament so that people can adopt those ideals for promoting peace. And in those ideals, you will find great insight towards what is most good to human beings and towards peace in humanity. Also, you must understand that yoga does not condone drugs. Drugs and the use of drugs that is used by many today for entering into certain mental expansion, yoga is completely against it. Because you can control your mind by your own integration of personality, not by any external use. Any external means allows you to depend upon it. And there is a great study of that which I will not enter into now. With this, I will conclude.